Story number 1. The 3 a.m. spotter. There is a distinct, almost suffocating quality to the silence of a 24-hour gym at 3 in the morning. It isn't a peaceful quiet. It's a heavy, expectant stillness, broken only by the harsh, sterile hum of fluorescent lights and the mechanical drone of the overhead ventilation system. For most people, a gym is a crowded, energetic space filled with heavy breathing, loud music, and the rhythmic clanking of iron. But when you are the only living soul in a cavernous, 10,000 square foot warehouse filled with mirrors, dark corners, and heavy machinery, it ceases to feel like a sanctuary. It starts to feel like an incredibly elaborate trap. I have always been a night owl, a byproduct of working swing shifts at a local logistics center. My sleep schedule was permanently fractured, so going to the gym at 2:30 a.m. wasn't just a preference. It was the only time I could consistently fit a workout into my life. My gym was a massive chain brand facility located in the back corner of a largely abandoned strip mall. During the day, the parking lot was packed, but at night, the massive expanse of cracked asphalt was a desolate wasteland, illuminated only by a few flickering amber streetlights. Access after midnight was entirely unstaffed. You simply swiped your keycard at the magnetic door, waited for the green light and the heavy mechanical click, and let yourself in. For the first 6 months, I loved it. I had the entire free weight section to myself. I could cycle through the machines without waiting, play my own music softly from my phone speaker, and enjoy the utter isolation. The only companions I had were the rows of my own reflections stretching down the mirrored walls. It was a Tuesday night in late November. The weather outside was bitter, a freezing rain slicking the roads and making the air bite at your skin. I swiped my card, heard the familiar click, and pushed into the lobby. The blast of the heater was a welcome relief. As usual, the front desk was dark, the computer monitors asleep. I walked past the turnstiles and into the main workout floor. I was entirely alone. My routine that night was focused on heavy deadlifts. I set up my barbell on the platform situated in the far back corner of the facility, near the emergency exit door. This spot gave me a full, unobstructed view of the entire gym. From my platform, I could see the rows of treadmills, the cable machines, the locker room entrances, and far in the distance, the front doors. About 45 minutes into my workout, my muscles were burning, and I was deep in the zone. I was resting between sets, sitting on a flat bench and staring blankly at my phone, when I heard a sound that made my blood run cold. Beep, click. It was the front door. I looked up instantly. Through the thick glass of the lobby partition, I saw a figure step inside. At first, I wasn't alarmed. Occasionally, other night shift workers or insomniacs would come in, but there was something immediately wrong about this person's entrance. When you enter a gym in the dead of winter, the first thing you do is stomp the slush off your shoes. You take off your heavy coat. You carry a gym bag. You walk with purpose toward the locker rooms to change. This person did none of that. It was a tall, incredibly gaunt man wearing a filthy, oversized gray hoodie pulled up over his head and baggy, dark jeans that dragged on the floor, soaking wet at the hems. He didn't have a gym bag. He didn't stop to take off his coat. He just stood in the lobby for a long, agonizing moment, his head slowly panning left to right, scanning the vast, empty room. I froze on my bench in the back corner. The lights over the deadlift platform were motion activated and had dimmed slightly since I was resting, casting me in deep shadow. From where he was standing, looking into the brightly lit maze of machines, I was practically invisible. The man finally moved. He didn't walk toward the locker rooms or the cardio equipment. He began to slowly, methodically pace down the main central aisle of the gym. His movements were bizarrely fluid, almost gliding, his wet sneakers making a quiet, sickening squelch, squelch, squelch against the rubber flooring. I stopped breathing. Every survival instinct I possessed was screaming at me that this wasn't a member. This wasn't someone looking to get a late-night pump. He stopped near the chest press machines, right in the center of the room. He turned his back to me, facing the massive wall of mirrors that spanned the entire length of the gym. I watched him through the reflection. His face was entirely obscured by the deep shadow of his hood, but his posture was unnerving. He just stood there, completely motionless, staring at his own reflection. Or maybe he was using the mirrors to look at the rest of the room behind him. 5 minutes passed. He didn't touch a single piece of equipment. He didn't pull out a phone. He just stood like a statue, his hands shoved deep into the pockets of his wet hoodie. I slowly, silently reached down and slipped my phone into my sweatpants pocket. I had to leave. I didn't care about finishing my workout. I just wanted to get to my car. But my keys and my heavy winter coat were in a locker in the men's changing room. To get there, I would have to walk out of the shadows of the back corner, cross the open floor, and pass within 30 feet of him. I decided to wait him out. Surely he would move eventually. Another 5 minutes crawled by. The silence in the gym was deafening. My heart was hammering so hard against my ribs, I was terrified he could hear it echoing across the room. Then his head snapped to the side. He wasn't looking at the mirror anymore. He had turned his head slightly to the right, angling his face directly toward the dark corner where I was sitting. He knew I was there. A cold sweat broke out across my forehead. Slowly, the man turned his entire body to face my direction. He didn't say a word. He didn't raise a hand. He just began walking toward me. His pace was agonizingly slow. Squelch, squelch, squelch. Panic seized my chest. I couldn't stay in the corner. Behind me was only the emergency exit, which, if pushed, would trigger a deafening alarm and require me to run out into the freezing rain in a t-shirt and shorts. My car keys were in the locker room. I had to make a break for it. I stood up. As soon as I moved, the motion sensors above me triggered, bathing my corner in bright, blinding white light. The man stopped dead in his tracks. We were about 60 feet apart. Now that I was illuminated, I could see the lower half of his face protruding from the hood. He had a patchy, unkempt beard, and his lips were curled into a wide, unnatural, ear-to-ear grin. It wasn't a friendly smile. It was a rictus grin of pure, predatory anticipation. "Hey," I called out, my voice trembling despite my best efforts to sound authoritative. "You a member here?" He didn't answer. The grin just widened, exposing yellowed teeth. And then he took a step forward. A fast, deliberate step. I bolted. I sprinted out of the deadlift area, keeping a wide berth, looping around the rows of treadmills toward the men's locker room. I risked a glance over my shoulder. He wasn't walking anymore. He was power walking after me, his arms stiff at his sides, his head unnaturally level. I crashed through the swinging wooden doors of the men's locker room, the heavy wood slamming shut behind me. The locker room was built like a maze, rows of tall metal lockers creating narrow, blind aisles, leading back toward the showers and the sauna. I ran down my aisle, desperately spinning the dial on my combination padlock. 34, 12, 28. My hands were shaking so violently I missed the last number. I cursed under my breath, resetting the dial. Suddenly, the wooden doors of the locker room swung open with a violent bang that echoed like a gunshot off the tile walls. I froze. My breath hitched in my throat. Squelch, squelch, squelch. He was inside. I abandoned my locker. I abandoned my keys. I backed away, moving silently toward the back of the locker room, toward the shower stalls. "I know you're in here," a voice whispered. It didn't sound like a normal human voice. It was raspy, wet, and incredibly low, echoing through the empty locker aisles. "You have nice form." A wave of pure nausea hit me. He had been watching me for much longer than I realized. He must have been standing in the shadows of the lobby, observing me through the glass before he even swiped in. Swiped in? How did he get in? The door requires a magnetic keycard. I ducked into the last shower stall, pulling the heavy, opaque plastic curtain shut. The shower area was a dead end. There was nowhere else to go. I pressed my back against the cold, wet tile, pulling my knees to my chest, trying to silence my own breathing. Clang! He had opened a locker door. Clang! He opened another one. He was walking down the rows, systematically checking the aisles. Peekaboo, the raspy voice hummed. Squelch, squelch, squelch. The wet footsteps transitioned from the carpet of the locker area to the hard tile of the bathroom and shower section. He was getting closer. I pulled my phone out of my pocket. No signal. The locker room was situated deep in the center of the building, surrounded by thick concrete walls. I was completely cut off. The footsteps stopped directly outside the shower area. There were 6 stalls. I was in the farthest one on the right. I heard the swoosh of the first curtain being ripped back. Empty. Swoosh. The second curtain. Empty. My heart felt like it was going to explode. I scanned the stall for anything I could use as a weapon. There was nothing but a flimsy plastic soap dispenser attached to the wall. Swoosh. The third curtain. He was humming now. A low, off-key melody that vibrated against the tile. Swoosh. The fourth curtain. He was 1 stall away. I could smell him now. A pungent, overpowering stench of wet garbage, stale sweat, and something metallic, like copper or dried blood. Swoosh. The 5th curtain. Silence. The humming stopped. The footsteps stopped. He was standing right on the other side of my plastic curtain. I could see the dark silhouette of his boots through the frosted gap at the bottom. I squeezed my eyes shut, bracing for the curtain to be violently torn open. I tensed my legs, ready to kick out with everything I had the second I saw his face. Seconds ticked by. An eternity. He didn't move. He didn't pull the curtain. Then I heard a sound that will haunt my nightmares until the day I die. A quiet, wet sound coming from above me. I slowly tilted my head up. The walls of the shower stalls didn't reach all the way to the ceiling. There was a gap of about 2 feet between the top of the tile and the ceiling panels. 2 pale, filthy hands were gripping the top of the dividing wall between my stall and the one next to it. Slowly, painfully slowly, a face pulled itself up over the ledge, peering down at me from above. It was him. The hood was down. His hair was matted and greasy. His eyes were wide, bloodshot, and entirely devoid of sanity. And that horrific ear-to-ear grin was plastered across his face. "Found you," he whispered. He started to hoist his body over the partition to drop into my stall. Pure, unadulterated adrenaline took over. I didn't think. I lunged forward, throwing my entire body weight against the plastic curtain, ripping it off its rings and barreling out of the stall. I heard a heavy thud and a sharp grunt behind me as he slipped and fell into the wet shower floor. I didn't look back. I sprinted across the wet tile, slipping and scrambling, bursting through the wooden locker room doors and flying across the main gym floor. I didn't care about my coat or my keys anymore. I hit the emergency exit door in the back corner at full speed, slamming the panic bar. A deafening, piercing alarm instantly began blaring, echoing through the massive warehouse. I burst out into the freezing night air, tumbling down a concrete ramp and into the dark alley behind the strip mall. I ran through the freezing rain in a t-shirt and gym shorts for 2 full miles until I reached a 24-hour gas station. The attendant took one look at my pale, terrified face and locked the doors, dialing 911 immediately. When the police arrived at the gym 20 minutes later, the place was completely empty. My keys, my wallet, and my coat were still perfectly untouched in my locker. The emergency door was propped open, swaying in the wind. But it was what they found a week later that truly terrified me. The gym management reviewed the security footage. The man hadn't used a key card to enter. He had slipped in behind a patron earlier that evening, around 8 p.m., bypassing the front desk while the staff was busy. But he hadn't left. Upon further investigation of the locker room, maintenance workers found an access panel in the ceiling above the showers that had been unscrewed from the inside. They discovered that the man had not just broken in that night, he had been living in the crawl space above the gym's drop ceiling for nearly 3 weeks. They found food wrappers, a soiled mattress pad, and a collection of stolen gym clothes. And right above the exact shower stall I had hidden in, they found a small hole drilled through the ceiling tile, looking directly down. He hadn't been hunting me that night. He was coming down to play with the person he had been watching from above every single night. I never stepped foot in a 24-hour gym again.